Today, we are going to be joined by one of the other coaches at Runners Connect. Her name is Tina Muir, and for those of you who don't know how Tina and I really have a connection, we used to race together when both of us were in college. We were both Division II athletes, and Tina is originally from Britain, but she came over to attend college in the US and liked it so much that she decided to stay. And since then, Tina has gone on to do wonderful things. As an athlete, she's run 2:41 in the marathon. She's run 1 hour and 14 minutes in the half marathon. And this week we have our second of 2 Runners Connect camps. And so she is going to be joining me so that she can help out, greet the athletes and be a part of the camp life here. So today, Tina and I are going to be discussing nutrition. We're going to be talking about how both of us make time for running, and we're going to be discussing a few other things. So here is Tina now. And for those of you who have the app Periscope, we are going to be, if you'd like to join in, you can follow Runners_Connect. Runners_Connect on the Periscope app. And should we allow them to ask live questions on there? Or?
Yeah, we can put it back on if you want. But yeah, I mean, I just did a short scope, just kind of showing everyone around the Zap community. But I'm thinking maybe we could do one later in the week.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Then we could just focus on that. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So if you do have questions today, you can go ahead and log on to the Runners Connect page, and there you will see an option to go to the coach chat. And once you're at the coach chat, you go ahead and push play on the video. You can scroll down below to, you will see a chat section that says enter your name. So we're going to go ahead and hit and enter our name. So that way, if you have any questions, you can type them there, and those will pop up as well. So the first thing Tina and I wanted to discuss is one of our favorite topics, because we are both people who like to cook. And I apologize that the video may be a bit blurry and slow. The internet here is not great, but we're working on it. So, all right. So we wanted to talk about nutrition, and I think one of the best things we could do is kind of walk you through a day in the life of 2 elite runners, especially as one of the most common questions we get asked is about, do we have this strict special diet? So why don't we talk about yesterday? Let's kind of walk through our day and what we did. Yeah.
Do you want me to say that?
Yeah, you go ahead. And start.
So Sarah and I both had a workout yesterday morning, and Sarah being a Zap Fitness member means she has certain obligations. So we couldn't start our workout, early in the morning, but that wasn't so much of a big deal because we, we had the whole day and we could kind of choose, and it wasn't too warm.
Right.
So that was good.
Mm-hmm.
So then we headed out over to, where was it?
It was over to a little town called Todd. But what did we eat before we headed out?
Yeah, before we headed out, we both made sure we had breakfast. I actually got up a little bit earlier because I need a bit more time to digest. So I got up about 7 because I knew we were going to be running about 10. But again, that already shows a difference between us in that I needed to eat 3 hours before because I know that's what my body needed.
Right, whereas I have an iron stomach and I could eat 45 minutes to an hour before and it won't bother me.
Yeah,
right.
So that again already kind of showed that we have a bit of a differential there, but we both made sure we got fuel in, we got some food in. And
what did you eat in the morning?
I had a bagel and a banana.
Right, and I had toast with peanut butter and honey. That's one of my favorite pre-race workouts, as well as plenty of water, because I knew that we would be sweating and the sun was going to come up. And I think hydrating before a run is one of the easiest ways to make your workout go a little more smoothly, especially as I see a lot of runners on the stream posting about how much water they need to take in during their runs, when the truth is that if you're properly hydrated before a run, you shouldn't truly need all that much water during the actual run itself. So yeah, we had our breakfast, we headed out there, and what was your workout yesterday?
I did 2 by 5 miles with, I had a little break, but that break was kind of in between was jumping in the car, and one of the other athletes drove me 2 miles down, and then I ran back towards Sarah while she did her
13-mile run. It was at marathon effort, we'll call it that. It was a little bit slower than marathon pace, but yesterday I had a 13-mile time trial. Now, since I'm doing marathon training, I chose to fuel during my workout, whereas Tina did not. Tina right now is training she did the London Marathon this past year, but she's training for some shorter distance stuff, including a half marathon. And why is it that some people fuel in a half, whereas you don't fuel during half, do you?
No.
You don't, yeah. So I think a good rule of thumb for fueling is that if you're going to be running or racing longer than 1 hour and 20 minutes, then you should be fueling. Whereas someone like Tina, she's running a half marathon. Her race is going to take less than 1 hour and 20 minutes. whereas the same distance for someone else could take 2 hours. So that person needs to be fueling. So in terms of fueling, we don't really look at the mileage of the race. We more look at the time that you're going to be on your feet. So as Tina is not preparing for a race in which she needs to fuel, she's not necessarily so concerned with that during her speed workouts. Whereas me, I'm preparing for the Chicago Marathon where I'm going to need to take fuel every 10 kilometers. And so for that reason, yesterday we had one of the athletes, actually you handed me my bottle, hopped in the car halfway through Tina's workout. She was speeding up ahead of me in the car. And so she handed me my bottle and my gel, and I took that during the workout. Now, for those of you who are planning on fueling during a marathon, don't wait until race day to fuel. Be practicing it because everyone's stomach reacts a little bit differently.
You with your iron stomach, that's something you said you've had issues with gels yourself. So
absolutely, find a brand you're comfortable with. Yeah, a lot of marathons, like Boston Marathon, it will put out the Power Bar brand at certain stations. Some marathons offer the GU brand. It's really important to go onto a training or a website that is going to tell you what they offer if you plan on taking fuel that they offer to you, because you never know how your stomach's going to react to anything. So so then after the run, let's talk about how we fueled for the rest of the day.
Well, I had a protein bar within 20 minutes and just ate some fruit that we had packed up on the way back. And you had
yeah, I think I had a bit of a protein bar. I had some pasta salad, and I think it's great that we knew that we were going to be driving 45 minutes there and 45 minutes back, and so we packed some food with us in just little styrofoam cups. It was great to have that pasta salad and fruit salad. That was it really hit the spot. But then once we got back to Zap, Tina kind of threw out the idea of, doesn't a burger sound good? So last night we headed up into town and got just these big, thick burgers and fries. And I think a lot of the time people are shocked to hear that elite runners will go out to eat and they'll have normal people food. But I made it through my entire burger. So did you. And our fries, and it was absolutely great. And I think that there are times when, after you've depleted your body, for me, the mileage total yesterday was it was 20 miles. And so for that reason, my body was craving, it needed protein, it needed carbs, it needed red meat. And a burger hits all three of those right on the nose. So that was really, really great. So the food here, though, we have a chef. Tina's now experienced a few meals from him, and let's just kind of talk about the generally being surrounded by food that is good for runners. That's a really good thing. So let's talk about dinner the other night. What were the kind of dishes he had out, and why they were good?
Well, first, one other thing I wanted to mention, in addition to that burger, to the burger and to what we had on the way back, we did actually also eat when we got back here as well.
Right.
So we had another meal then. So it wasn't just, I had a protein bar all the way up to dinner, and Sarah had that pasta salad. We did have a lunch of leftovers when we got back.
Yes.
But in answer to your question, it reminded me, because we were actually eating the leftovers of this meal. When I came here, I was wondering, what's it going to be like? How healthy are we going to go here? Are we going to just be eating, plain chicken and rice, or are we going to have something kind of interesting? I was excited to see, but it was great. We had like buffet style food. We had lasagna, beets with goat's cheese. We had a rice dip, we couldn't figure out if it was rice or barley or something.
Some sort
like
of grain dish, yeah.
With like beans, like fava beans, and what was the other thing?
There was something else. There's always a salad put out, and then generally with the camps that we host here, the chef always puts out a dessert, and I think that's something important to have. And I also wanted to speak to moderation and why it's important to have those sweets. Tina and I both really we share a lifestyle where we are not afraid to partake of desserts, and let's just kind of speak to like moderation in all things, because in my opinion, I think it's important to have to be kind of in a lifestyle like I am here, where healthy food is always around. If I'm reaching for leftovers in the fridge, I know it's going to be, the ratatouille, that was the other thing.
Was it,
Eggplants and zucchini and tomatoes, these delicious, healthy vegetable-based dishes that are going to really fuel your body properly. I always encourage you to, treat your body like a performance vehicle. You wouldn't put cheap fuel into a race car. So fuel your body with premium fuel, but at the same time, moderation can help you keep your sanity. For instance, when Tina came and visited me, she brought me this bag full of British candies, which were wonderful. And you've been here 2 days. I've eaten the whole bag. So I think it's important to not deny yourself, because the truth is that the amount that you run, if you're someone who's training for a marathon or you've committed yourself to your training, you are certainly due an indulgence every now and then.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think the fact that yesterday we had a big run, so that kind of gave us not a free pass or whatever, but we could have a burger, which is something typically not considered, great for you. But like Sarah mentioned, it's got all the key nutrients, all the things you need to refuel. So that's good. And, we had those things, but we also balanced it out with the rest of the day was kind of, we were getting things where the priority was refueling, like getting those carbs back in, getting the protein back in. And today, we're making sure we're going to have like a nice healthy dinner. So it doesn't mean you have to have like a very small amount, or you could, if you wanted to have, let's say, something that was really bad for you. I'm trying to think of an example. Ice cream.
Oh, that was my thought.
Yeah. If you love ice cream, which we both
do. Yeah.
Then, that's okay to have ice cream, but then maybe balance it out with the rest of the day, kind of making that a bit more healthy. Like, we know we had a burger last night, and we know we're probably going to have a good dessert tonight. So we're going to have the rest of the day is kind of like fueling your food. And that's where all those foods that they kind of talk about, you read in articles and Runners Connect articles about, you want to get beets in your diet, you want to get this and that, and it can seem overwhelming, like how do you fit it in?
Yeah.
We'll try and make it into those meals. And one thing I like to do is pick a vegetable or something and make that the focus, and then add in the grains and the meat afterwards, rather than a lot of people go, okay, I'm going to have chicken. What can I add to my chicken? But
exactly.
So make the vegetable that you need to get in, like beets is a great example, even though you're not a key fan of beets.
I want to like them, I just, yeah.
Then add, make your meal around that. So that's
absolutely, yeah. I think it can be worth noting that living here, Zap is, as Tina now knows, and those of you who have been to camp, that, Zap is at the end of a dirt road in the middle of the mountains. And so it's very easy to keep that healthy lifestyle when all you have around you is healthy food. So when you go grocery shopping, 2 rules: A, try not to grocery shop hungry, and B, get the things you need, the good things first. Fill your cart with those vegetables, those meats, breads, the things that are really just staples of a runner's diet. And then if you have a little room in your cart, throw in a packet of Oreos, sure. So that way, when you're at home and you're surrounded, you're hungry, you will start reaching for things that are better for you, rather than having your cupboard stocked with Pringles and Oreos and Chex Mix or whatever it is. If you have a little indulgence every now and then, that's fine, but make sure that you have plenty of good foods available to you, because when you're hungry and you're at home and you don't want to go out, and if there's no healthy food available, you're going to eat what's there. So be smart about your shopping, be smart about your availability that you have around you. So I also did want to speak to, and I know it's something that we've talked about a bit here on the Coach Chat, but about why restriction of calories doesn't really work. Now we've all, we've discussed this. It's a little bit of a touchy subject, especially for women, but talking about how often, women will see them, they'll start to restrict calories, they'll drop a lot of weight, they'll all of a sudden see these big boosts in performances in running, but then they will kind of fall off the edge of that fitness cliff, and they will not run well ever again. So there's been a few examples that we thought of women who have gone down that route, and it's ended terribly. But I think it's wonderful to see. We were discussing a case today where a woman was, she was a great college runner, but decided to go down that road, unfortunately, and ended up with injury after injury after injury because her body simply couldn't sustain it. But what happened after that?
Well, she finally came to a point where she knew something had to change. She knew this was a point where, I think someone told her, like, you have to make a change right now. And she did. She saw a nutritionist, she got it, figured out, and she started making the changes, started adding more of those foods back into her life, not being so obsessed with eating clean 100% of the time. And she gained some weight, she looks healthy and strong, and she's doing amazing right now. Really incredible to see.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can, you'll see oftentimes where if someone is able to bounce back from that, they will actually be better for it on the other side. So at the end of the day, I think that Tina and I both agree that restriction of calories, it's simply not worth it. Now, if you're an overweight person or athlete, starting to get in shape, using running as a form of weight loss, that's something entirely different. But both of us like to treat our bodies, to look at them more as what we want them to do for us versus what number we want to see on the scale. I think that's very important. So we did get one question today related to nutrition. I guess it's a little bit about what we were talking about earlier, but I'll go ahead and throw that out. It says, For the marathon, if I am taking GU throughout, I know that I should be taking it with water. But I was wondering for the rest of the aid stations along the way, should I opt for Gatorade when I am not taking GU or stick with water the entire marathon? Okay, so that's a good question. So what happens if you bring some gel packets with you, but you don't want to carry, 8 or 10 gel packets, and then you run out of gel? What should you be taking for the rest of the marathon? Well, my suggestion is, if at all you can manage it, continue taking gel. Have a way to have someone waiting for you at mile 20 with a gel, or plan ahead on the course and know where there is gel available. But if you absolutely can't, the only way that I would say yes, take Gatorade is if you'd practiced with it before, because again, you don't want to try anything new on race day that you have not tried in practice. I think that is vitally important. What answer would you give to this person as well?
Yeah, I mean, I agree pretty much exactly with what you said. It's better to be taking something than nothing. So, if you have to go for Gatorade, then do it. But
right,
I mean, yeah. I haven't done, with the marathon fueling, I don't feel like I'm as experienced, so I'm still kind of learning it even myself. So I worry about saying exact advice because I'm not. I haven't done it enough to.
And again, like every athlete is different. Some people can handle things better than others, but I think the biggest thing that you see is that I think it's this myth that you can stay hydrated throughout a marathon. No matter how much water you drink, what you're trying to do is push off dehydration as long as you can. So any fluid that you're getting down is a good thing, but just in terms of taking something new on race day, just please make sure you practice with it. So the next thing we kind of wanted to talk about, veering a little bit away from the nutrition topic, was about how to kind of prioritize running to make it a part of your life, because elite runners like Tina and I, we spend a lot of our day out there on the roads and on the trails. But I realize that those of you who aren't running quite as fast as us, oftentimes, even if you're running less mileage, you're spending even more time out there. So it's very difficult to find time for your running. So I just wanted to share, I guess, maybe a little bit of encouragement that life gets in the way even for professional athletes. So we'll talk a little bit about yesterday. So let's talk about how time-wise, how our day was structured. Yeah.
Well, we pretty much spent, I'd say about 3 hours in the car,
driving
a little bit more, driving around. So we did drive out to the place we were doing the workout, which we mentioned, which that was completely expected. But when we got back, as soon as we had our lunch, we realized the vans from Enterprise had to go back, which again is another, half an hour?
Half an hour out, half an hour back,
drive.
Yeah.
So we had to drive the vans back. So we didn't really have much time to relax. And then we came back here, or we had to pick someone up on the way, another one of the athletes. That's again something, he was in the pool,
Another 20 minutes.
And he was the guy that had driven us that morning. So, kind of fair is fair. We waited for him to finish his workout, came back. And then in the evening, Sarah and I wanted to go out again. So, we decided to drive out again. So we did spend a good amount of time in the car, but just the kind of point of that was that drive with driving the vans back, that's something we wouldn't have expected in that day, but it's a life task. It's one of the priorities you have to have. And, that didn't mean because Sarah and I had a tough workout in that morning, we could just, lay on the couch all day, which is realistically none of you are going to be able to do either. But even elites have it. You just have to get on with it, kind of.
Absolutely. And yeah, in the morning, before we were able to head out for our workout, we host the camps here at Zap Fitness, and there's one thing we do on the last day of camp, which is called a prediction run, which is a 3.2 mile. It's a 1.6 mile loop that the runners do twice. So to make 3.2 miles, they run at watch list, they try and predict their times, which is great. It's a lot of fun, but it also means that the Zap athletes have to be out there along the course, which is complicated and winds through a Christmas tree farm. They have to be there pointing directions and marking turns. So that kind of pushed our workout off another hour. So flexibility is something that runners, even elite, the most elite of the elite, they have to deal with on a daily basis, especially super elite runners who are traveling constantly to go to races overseas, or even around the country. It takes a lot out of you, making time for travel and trying to fit your run in between flights, and especially if you're running twice a day like most of us are. So it's very, very difficult sometimes to make running happen. But like Tina was mentioning with putting the vegetables on your plate first and structuring everything around it, if you put running on the plate of your day, if you put running on there first and say, okay, then how am I going to fit in work and kids and school and family, structuring everything else around running. If your goals are important enough to you, you will find a way to fit in your runs. We have plenty of athletes who are up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning because that's the only time they have to run. And that is incredible and inspirational. And I honestly don't even know if I could do that, but life happens, and the little comment I wrote on my notes is, in parentheses, just deal with it. We have to find a way around it. We find a way to make it happen. For instance, yesterday, after the run, I was feeling very, very ill. I'd maybe overexerted myself a bit. And so for that reason, I chose not to do my second run of the day, which means I'm going to have to squeeze in 4 miles later on this week to make up for mileage. So that happens as well. There are times that life gets in the way and you'll miss a run. You can make up for it. It's not the end of the world. So in terms of training, this is an interesting part of our talk, because Tina and I have raced at a very, very comparable level for the last 5 years. And I think it's important to, for athletes to see that a cookie cutter program, there isn't one way to skin a cat in terms of becoming an elite athlete. And Tina and I have very different experiences. So do you want to go ahead and speak to the differences that we see in our mileage and training?
So, well, firstly, let's look at, the mileage, as that is probably the biggest differential between us. So, and I'm sure a lot of you, mileage is completely different between you. And you may have someone, who's next to you and you race the same, but you run completely different miles, which is kind of, similar with Sarah and I, in that Sarah, runs 120 plus
ish. Yeah, sure.
A week,
yeah.
120 to 140 miles a week. And that's her range. Whereas for me, my range tends to be 65 to 85, which still, I'm sure, sounds like a lot to many of you. But, if you think about it, that's a huge difference between two runners who are out there kind of, in amongst the same competition and doing the same kind of thing. But the difference is, like, it's what your body can handle. Sarah's learned what hers can, and I haven't tried that many miles, but my coach is very sure that what I'm doing is good for me, and he wants me to stick with what I do. And I add in extra cross training, which makes up some of the hours, but still nowhere near what Sarah does.
And along those lines too, I've tried to decrease my mileage down to what you run, and I feel stale. I can't perform as well. It's a failed experiment for me to try and bring my mileage down. So for me, my body is not comfortable unless I'm up over 110 miles. And figuring out what works best for you is often it's trial and error. But we've learned over the years what works best for us.
And even when it comes to workouts, I think we have different workouts where I'm not training for a marathon right now, but even when I was, like, we were talking this morning about long runs. Like, Sarah does quite a few. You go up to 32 as you did miles, whereas I do not go higher than 23, 24. And then some of your long runs will be, like you said, Sarah does different segments at marathon pace, whereas mine, the hard ones tend to be, I start at regular pace and kind of progress my way down as the run goes on. So even through that, there's different ways of doing it and different strengths. Actually, pacing is probably another good example. Sarah kind of said that, she, in workouts, just to look at her watch and kind of check in where she is and kind of go out and just hold on. And whereas I kind of work the other way, coming from the back of the pack, and I tend to go out very, very conservative and work my way forward. So even when it comes to that, you can finish near each other, but you can, there's so many different ways of getting around it.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that even among, a lot of people assume that all elite runners are one. They have one mindset or one type of personality, very type A, very structured. Whereas you'll see Tina's coach and my coach, they approach us differently as athletes because we are two different people. And my coach knows that, if he changes a workout the day before and makes it something completely different, I can fly by the seat of my pants. Whereas Tina's coach likes to have her training. She knows what she's doing a month from now, as well as even something specific called, I had to ask you about, what's the name of it? A Tina tempo?
A Tina tempo, yeah.
Right, and something that she is, a strength of hers, he has recognized that she has a strength of progression. So describe what that is, yeah.
Okay, so basically what it comes down to is, if my coach would set me a progression where, say I would start at 6 minutes per mile or whatever, whatever you would have it at. Start at 10 minutes per mile, and then you cut down. Each mile is a little bit faster. If he set me that and I looked at my watch, then my pace would be all over the place. Too fast, too slow, too fast, too slow. But if he just tells me to just run, naturally I can do it within 10 seconds, like bang on every time. So he just calls it a Tina tempo because he's learned that for me, calling it a cut down or a progression messes me up. So.
Right. Whereas, yeah, as my coach, for me, I guess along similar lines, he knows that for me to to approach a marathon confidently, I need to have several long runs that have marathon paced pieces in them for me to wrap my mind around the idea of holding that pace for a long time. So it's like often, but even like with one coach, like I don't coach all my athletes the same way. If I have an athlete who responds really, really well to quantifiable work, to seeing their paces and their splits, then I will coach an athlete more in that direction. Whereas if I have an athlete who is a head case when it comes to seeing their splits, and it really bothers them if they have an off day and they notice that their splits are 2 seconds slower, per mile, then I'm going to give that athlete workouts like a fartlek of 6 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 5 minutes on, 2 minutes, 30 seconds off. So that way they're not so much focused on paces as they are on their own body's effort. So it's great when you start to recognize your strengths in your running, saying, okay, I tend to race best when, and then fill in the blank, when I feel 100% prepared because I see my paces, or when I have no expectations on the race because I've run non-quantifiable work. So share with your coach or with us on the stream, like if you've noticed any strengths or weaknesses that you'd like us to capitalize on, because we can certainly do that. So we did get a question today that I thought was a little interesting. It said, what is a weekly workout you would set out for a girl who wants to go 19 minutes in 5K and a guy who wants to go 24 minutes or better in 8K with competition on Saturday? As today is Monday and the race is Saturday, my initial response is to say, well, there's nothing you can do between now and then. 5 days isn't going to change your fitness. However, I think it would be worth noting that if you want to get in good 5K shape, what is a good solid staple 5K workout that you like to do?
Well, for me, I like doing the what my coach calls like rhythm workouts, where you're kind of running your race pace for maybe a 400, and then you kind of repeat that with a short rest. You repeat that maybe 12 to 16 times. So you're running the distance of the race, but you're doing it in little chunks with short breaks. So you get used to running the race pace. You know what you're doing, and it kind of feels comfortable for you. So
I think that's great.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and women don't necessarily race 8Ks very often. I've raced one, I think, but we race 5K and 6K in cross country, and then on the roads anywhere from 5K up to the marathon. But for me, a good staple 5K workout that if I was going to say to you, like this is, if you run this workout, then I'd be able to kind of tell what kind of 5K shape you're in. A good workout for something like that would be if you can run 2 by 1 mile. So taking 2 1-mile intervals and running those at what feels like 90 to 90% effort. So, or 90 to 95% effort. Very aggressive. And yet you still have that 1% in the tank. If you're running 2 by a mile and then you're going to finish with 2 by 400, full recovery in between each, and the 400s will be all out. That's a really good confidence boosting workout, because often you step on a track or on a trail and you're able to bust out times that you had no idea you were capable of. And generally, I've noticed in my own training, when I do that workout the week of a race, my 5K pace tends to be just a few seconds slower than the pace that I was running per mile for those on-mile pieces. So that's kind of a little, I guess, along the line of a predictive type workout that's going to show you what kind of pace you could run. But I guess the last thing I really wanted to touch on was body image and trouble spots. This is something that Tina and I were discussing yesterday, and I just thought I really, really wanted to share, because I think that I don't know if I told you this, but there was a writer who came to Zap, and he wrote this article, and he came to Zap as a camper, so he wasn't exactly a professional runner, but he ran, and he was with a group of other runners who were here for the week. And he said he just kind of stepped back for a second, and he looked at the campers, and then he looked at the elite runners, and he said the way he described it in his writing, he said they looked like they were made by a different God who cared a lot more. And it just made me laugh, because I think people assume they have this image in their mind of elite runners they have these beautiful, flawless bodies, and they are 100% happy with the way that they look. And yet Tina and I, just like anyone on planet Earth, we pick at our trouble spots. We look at pictures and we grimace at what we see. So, I mean, we just wanted to be open and share some of the things that we think about. So.
So, well, I think one funny thing for us to mention was, I hope you don't mind me saying this online, but we were kind of talking about how, every runner, it doesn't matter who you are, will have those thoughts of, should I look like this or should I look like that? And everyone looks at someone else and thinks, oh, I wish I looked like that. Like, I have a good friend who's very muscular, and she always said she wishes she wasn't so muscular and looked more like me, because she feels like she's too muscular, whereas I'm thinking, oh, I wish I looked like her, because everyone kind of has their own perception of it. But Sarah and I we were discussing we were both, telling each other which area of ours is our like trouble spot, or the area, when you go into a room and you look in the mirror, where do your eyes go? Right. Everyone is going to have their spot, but we both shared it, and I mean, I don't know if you want to say it. Mine is my stomach, like
mine is my thighs,
bit, and hers is her thighs. But like to her, she said, I would never ever think your stomach would be an issue. I don't see what that is. And to me, with her thighs, I'm like, are you kidding? So everyone has it, and the chances are no one else even knows what your spot is, or even you can maybe try that with your friends and family at home, see if they can tell what your spot is that you're uncomfortable about, and they probably will get it wrong, because
I'm sure, yeah.
We all have a different view. When we look in the mirror, our eyes go straight to that area, whereas other people, they're not going to notice that, because they love you and they think you're beautiful, and every part about you, and they don't specifically see that part as a reason. And I wonder if there's some kind of scientific study about how you determine what your spot is. That's
a very good question. Or maybe one moment or something that happened way long time ago. Because the interesting thing is, Tina and I have known each other. We have been racing together for like 8 years. It's been a long time. And I noticed yesterday, it's the first time I'd run with Tina in a long time. And because it was windy, she said, you know what, why don't you tuck in behind me? So I was tucked in behind her. And I just couldn't believe, like, running through my head, I was like, man, Tina has gotten so much more like lean and defined. Like, I was able to see the muscles, and I've run behind her before. So it was an interesting thought to think of. Just years of running, they slowly begin to forge your body into the most efficient version of itself. But the issue is that as runners, we don't see this. We have, I believe that every runner has a certain amount of body dysmorphia. I still see myself as the high school girl who weighed 15 pounds more than I do now, had no muscle definition, was very soft. And yet, because I don't see, it's been so gradual, I don't know the changes that have happened, but I can see in Tina, since having not run with her or against her for several years, all of a sudden, like, I see, wow, you've become so much more lean and defined. And it's just interesting that you may not notice how much running truly has changed your body, because a lot of the time we rely on feedback from a scale, when the truth is that because muscle weighs more than fat and weight distribution can change dramatically, the number on the scale may be the same or more, and you could look totally different. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Oh, without doubt.
Yeah. So I think it's really important to really stop, focusing on those trouble spots. I know it's an easy thing to say and a really hard thing to do. I will probably always be a little self-conscious about my thighs. But for the most part, we've mentioned the statistic 100 times, but knowing that our brains, what they produce on their own is 70% negative and 30% positive, it's very important for us to, if you don't like your thighs, find something on your body you do like, and every time you're tempted to be like, oh, my thighs, say, you know what, I have gorgeous arms, and just look at your arms for a minute. What is something you like about your body?
Actually, it is my arms.
I like my arms too.
Which is funny, because that's the part that's least related to running. But.
No, and I don't have like intimidating biceps at all, but I don't know. So find something that you do, because there's got to be something that you love about your body, and it is true that you will notice over time, or maybe your friends and family can point it out to you. Don't be afraid to ask, say, what on my body do you like? Like what looks like I've been running? Like what on my body seems strong to you? Because it's a great thing to hear the feedback of others. It's so funny how over the years we remember the negative things that people say to us. I remember every little snide comment about my body I've ever gotten, but we just throw the compliments aside. So, asking, and it may seem a little odd to like fish for compliments, but even if you have a spouse or, a child, a family member saying, what is something that you admire about my body, or what seems strong to you? That can be a great boost in confidence, because you may not know what other people like about you.
Oh yeah, and like for example, yesterday when she was running, when I was when I just started back in, Sarah had been running that whole time, so I was not out of breath again yet, and I was kind of saying to her, like, use those strong legs, use that power, use that strength. And so to me, because that's one of the best parts about Sarah, I was telling her to use that and trying to instill this confidence in her that was giving her strength. And in the same way that, people have said that to me, you've got, your legs are so strong. When I'm struggling in a race, I'll think to myself, come on, you're powerful, power past those people who are weaker than you. This is your chance. This is where your legs come in. This is where they're at their best. So try and use the compliments that others give you and say to yourself, okay, this is where I'm going to use that. Or if you love your arms, say, I'm going to use those lovely, powerful arms to power my way up this hill, whatever it may be.
Right, absolutely. And one little exercise that we did at camp last week that we'll do again this week, and that I want to encourage you to do if you didn't come to camp, is to take a few minutes, maybe even on your watch, take 3 minutes, and go ahead and write down the negative things that you see about your body. And then, take another 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes and go ahead and combat those. And I think for me, the one I can share is that the negative was that I don't have that light, fast Kenyan frame. But on the other side of the paper, I wrote, I have a body that is resilient and injury-free because it is strong, and I have an engine that can run forever because I fuel it properly. So it's really important to start to see your negatives as positives. So I think that's basically all we have for today, but I did want to mention for those of you coming to camp this week, if you're catching this coach chat, we have just a few differences from last week. We got a request for more protein, so I'm going to buy about 6 dozen eggs so that we can have some scrambled eggs during the day, hard-boiled eggs for those of you who want protein. And if you have any requests, we'll be having
a fly.
I'm jumping on my face. But we will have plenty of snacks and goodies and wine and beer. But if you have any special requests, we'd be happy to accommodate you. So go ahead and shoot me an email at sarah@runnersconnect.net with any dietary issues you may have. If you're gluten-free or vegetarian, our chef knows how to cater to that as well. So I look forward to seeing a number of you at camp this week. And I just think we're going to have a wonderful time.
Yeah,
I'm very excited. Yeah, thank you for joining us today, and we will see you again next week.